I'm here to talk to you about the Marvel vs. Capcom initiative.
Welcome to the Tairimo Boys podcast. I'm your host Cody. With me in second chair is the boy who always starts random fights in the street. It's Jeremy.
Even if I can't win them, I'll start them.
With me in third chair is the boy who wants to be crushed between Chun-Li's thighs. It's Ryan.
No. I'm the Repo Man, and your ass is way overdue. Guess what my favorite line of that movie is?
Ryan's already shooting out the quotes before we even start the review. Yep. Today we're going to the streets with some fighting, with some Street Fighter. The 1994 movie. It was released around Christmas time, so it was almost a 1995 movie. Based on the hit video game series Street Fighter, if you couldn't tell by the name of the...
I gotta ask, are you guys familiar with any of the lore behind Street Fighter whatsoever?
Yes.
Okay, thank God, because I have zero idea. Other than I knew a few characters.
So I'm Mr. Wiki himself, and during the movie I was like, wait, is this character looks a lot different than all the background characters? This is probably an important character, and I had like the wiki pulled up and reading stuff. But I can tell you right now, they really screwed up the lore in this movie.
Which is not surprising.
So let's get into it. Jeremy, what were your first thoughts?
I have never... I don't know anything about Street Fighter whatsoever, so I was looking forward to see this movie. Other than that, I'm going to leave it at that for now, because I'm going to make my judgment off knowing absolutely nothing. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
So Ryan, what do you have to say?
I miss my childhood.
Nostalgia's a hell of a drug.
It is. It's not a great movie by any means, but I miss my childhood.
I got a feeling our childhood was full of a lot of those type of movies.
So you get being a 90s kid.
Again, nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
So here are my first thoughts. I've never seen this movie before. The amount of times I've played Street Fighter, and usually it's Street Fighter 2, can be counted on one hand. I am familiar with the characters though. As someone isn't familiar with the lore, except for what I was reading on the wiki while watching this, I think this felt a lot like the Mortal Kombat movie, which we just reviewed. Is this like a great movie? No. Is it a Tairimo Boys certified fun movie? Yes, it is. I think this movie is actually pretty good, and it's something that's enjoyable to see.
Well said.
This movie is an hour and 40 minutes long, so it's not like it's like a huge monster that you're going to watch. It's kind of corny, but at the same time, it's entertaining. While the Mortal Kombat movie kind of focuses on fights, this movie focuses more on like the story. It's not the best story in the world, but at least it was entertaining. What do you guys think?
I 100% agree. I was entertained throughout most of the movie.
Agreed.
I do have to give some criticism, though. For a movie about street fights, there's an awfully lot of gun battles in this movie.
There is. There's a lot more based around a civil war than I thought there would be in a street fight movie.
Yeah, so the general plot of the movie is M. Bison's this evil dictator. I don't know how accurate that is to Street Fighter lore. I know he's like the final boss in 2. Meanwhile, you've got all these forces that are trying to kill him. His plan is to take over the world with super soldiers, but he's a good guy, as he tells us, because he just wants to conquer the world for good reason.
What a nice guy.
But Ryan, was that his plot in the games?
In the games, I actually don't remember. I lied when I said I knew the lore. All I know is it's just people that like to punch and kick each other in the face.
They like to throw fireballs and stuff too.
Yeah. They throw fireballs, and there's a green dude that electrocutes people, and the sumo wrestler slaps people a lot.
I do remember that from the games. That was actually one of the characters I hated fighting, was the sumo wrestler.
A malnourished Indian guy stretches his limbs really far.
Funny enough, the malnourished Indian guy was the only character that wasn't in this movie.
Dhalsim?
Was he in the? He might have been in the background.
Here's the guy with the bandana. They talk about why he wears the bandana.
That was Thunderhawk.
He's the dude that experiments on
Oh. So
Yeah.
he wasn't stretch. Oh, he was a scientist character. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so he was
In the game. In the game he does more.
Well, in the games it seems like everyone's doing more.
right? We didn't get a whole lot of special effects in this, except for towards the end, huh? When Darth Bison attacks.
Yeah. No kidding. Like, it was to the Palpatine electricity lightning fingers thing and flying around like Superman.
They saved the whole budget for special effects.
You know, they might have not been throwing Hadoukens and sonic booms and stuff, but I gotta say, like the set design on this movie was pretty nice.
I would agree.
It all felt grounded whenever it needed to be grounded. Every location felt real, and I think I'm confident that they shot this in some South Asian country with all the actors that were South Asian and just the general style they were going with.
No, I can easily see that.
So I have to ask, Jeremy, who was your favorite character?
I'm gonna say a split draw between Guile and Bison. I can't decide between the two. I was thinking about it all day. Honestly, they kept me the most entertained. Just their banter or the quippy one-liners. It kept me entertained the entire. Anytime they were on screen, I was entertained with them.
So the main hero and the main villain. The rogue
Yep.
Guile and the over exaggerated M Bison. What about you, Ryan?
Chun-Li, you weren't very far off in your intro.
I'm guessing this wasn't the Street Fighter movie where you get the shower scene with her.
Oh, we
No,
missed that.
I guess it's the other Street Fighter movie.
Which one? Okay, we gotta review that one.
it's the one that's strictly about, let me look it up, Chun-Li.
So, people at home, after we got done with Mortal Kombat, we needed a palate cleanser. So, Jeremy suggested Street Fighter. Or maybe it was Ryan. I don't remember.
That was Ryan.
Yeah,
That was Ryan.
Yep, it was Ryan because he's the nostalgia one. So I mentioned like the only two things I know about this movie is the of course scene from M Bison and the Chun-Li shower scene, which apparently isn't in this movie.
I'm so disappointed.
So if you wanted a Chun-Li shower scene, you got to watch the Legend of Chun-Li movie, 2009.
Stay tuned for our next review when we just review a 2-minute scene for an hour.
Be our
By
greatest
the way,
review
I
yet.
just love that our palate cleanser for reviewing a movie based off of a video game was reviewing a movie based off a video game.
Anything's a palate cleanser from Mortal Kombat on Annihilation.
That is true. That was a rough one to get through. I really did enjoy the fight scenes in this movie, though. They always felt really intense, as opposed to like Mortal Kombat. You know, even the original didn't feel this intense.
Yeah, I noticed like during the fight scenes, they were doing they were doing the same thing that they were doing with Mortal Kombat, where they were making a lot of jumps with the whenever blows were landing, but all the punches and kicks and all that, they seem to be have more impact with them.
I did not get motion sick watching these fights. I almost said street fights. Wasn't a whole lot of those.
Yeah, most of the fighting was in underground compounds, and there was a cage match at one point. So we never got around to my favorite character. My favorite character was Guile for one reason. He doesn't like journalists.
Oh, that's a good reason.
I guess if I switch careers to journalism, I'm not invited to your house for Thanksgiving anymore.
He'll be shot on sight. Another thing I'd like to mention is the humor in this movie. This movie had like a lot of funny scenes. At one point in time, M. Bison's talking with Sagat, and he's like, he covers his eyes, like, I guess you didn't see that, making fun of him. If you're familiar with Street Fighter, he's the guy with the eye, Sagat's the guy with the eye patch. Then there's another scene where E Honda is fighting Zangief in this like miniature like city thing, and there's like all these Godzilla sound effects playing, and then at the end of the movie when DJ and Zangief are talking, DJ's like, the only reason I sided with him is because he gave me a lot of money, and then Zangief goes, "You got paid?"
This movie really was funny. Like they put humor in the right spots, and this movie flowed really, really well.
Yeah, when they were trying to be funny, it actually was funny. Oh, and I forgot my favorite humor scene. This universe has this allied force called the Allied Nations, not to be confused with the United Nations, even though they share the same blue helmets. And if you don't know, 556 ammo pierces those blue helmets. But, anyways, at one point in time, they tell Guile and his forces to stand down and go home. And they take off anyway. And the Allied nation guy that tells him to stand down, he's talking on the phone with his superiors. He's like, oh yeah, Guile took most of the army. It took some of the army back, but most of the army's back at base. And then it goes back to base. There's just a lone cook cooking in the middle of the dirt area. It's a lot funnier than I explained it.
I was replaying it in my head, and it's a hilarious scene.
Way to kill a joke, Cody. Like I mentioned, this movie has a lot more plot than Mortal Kombat movie. So I'm just going to give a brief summary of it. The whole movie takes place in Shadaloo City. There's a civil war going on with M. Bison. So lore problem number one is Shadaloo's actually Sagat's criminal gang. So I don't think it's a city in actual Street Fighter. I'd ask Ryan if it is, but
I don't fucking know.
he doesn't know.
I actually used to know that. I haven't played that game since, well, the 90s.
We gotta get you an arcade machine.
I'm trying.
Write it off with all zero of our income.
Start our Christmas list now.
M. Bison captures a bunch of refugees and decides to ransom $20 billion. Which, if you really think about it, it's not really a whole lot of money. Although his plan was kind of goofy. He's like, he was gonna conquer the world by ransoming some prisoners. Kind of weird thing.
What a good guy. What a good guy.
At least he didn't kill him. And he kind of acted like he wasn't just gonna do the whole Dr. Evil thing of they pay us and we kill him anyway. But one of the things that this movie does early is it introduces most of our cast. Right at the beginning, we get introduced to Chun-Li, who's a journalist. We get introduced to Guile, who's in charge of like the Allied nations forces here. And Bison, of course, is introduced, showing the current conquest, soldiers fighting, and all that he's currently doing. Then we get introduced to Sagat and Vega. Sagat's running some underground fighting club. Ken and Ryu are like doing this like arms dealing thing. So they end up getting captured by him, thrown into a pit to fight Vega, and Guile busts in and arrests everyone.
The Ken Ryu duo, it worked well. There was a lot of chemistry between those two. That was fun.
Yeah, I love the interactions between them. And even like the rivalry that they set up between Sagat and Ken and Ryu, like it's just like mwah, chef's kiss.
Mwah.
Whenever you get to the main actors of this movie, they all did like a really good job, I think.
I agree, 100%.
If there was any problems, it was with the script, not with the actors themselves. Some of the other actors, that was a completely different story. There was a few times in the movie you could tell that they dubbed over someone's voice with a completely different voice.
Yes, I did notice that.
Oh, and I want to say Cammy's. I didn't think Cammy's actor was very good, but she doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. Also, she has her pants on the entire movie, so yeah.
Points lost for Cammy.
I do want to mention though, Guile. He's played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. If you guys haven't heard, Jean-Claude Van Damme is going to be an alternate skin for Johnny Cage in the new Mortal Kombat game.
I am so excited.
So technically, you'll be able to play Guile in Mortal Kombat now.
Almost a crossover.
Someday the crossover will happen.
Right? What other characters are we going to get from Street Fighter?
I remember 15 years ago, whenever DC vs. Mortal Kombat came out, me and Ryan were playing. I go, Ryan, when we were kids playing Mortal Kombat 2, did you ever think that one day you'd be fighting Sub-Zero as Batman? He's like, no.
No.
Damn, is that game really 15 years old? Jeez.
Everything we love is old now.
Brings a tear to my eye. I remember it like yesterday. Brutalities and all.
Yeah, everything's getting fucking old. Skyrim's 10 years old, people. It's actually 12 years old.
Good grief. Yeah, that one hurts. That one hurts. Skyrim, 10 years old already.
Anyways, back on topic.
Never mind our age, people.
Never mind the good old days. So was it the good old days for Sagat, Vega, Ken, and Ryu as they all got arrested and thrown into an Allied Nations prison? Ken and Ryu end up teaming up with Guile. They lead some kind of fake prison escape, and it's assumed Guile's killed. But did either of you guys really think whenever Guile was shot that he was actually killed?
No.
No.
I think like the only person they actually kill in this movie is Vega.
Doesn't Bison die too?
Jeremy didn't watch the after credit scene.
No, I did not. I didn't know there was an after credit scene. Damn it!
Yep. Sam Jackson recruits M. Bison. I'm here to talk to you about the Marvel vs. Capcom initiative.
Yeah, into the movie. It's clearly setting up for a sequel that never happens. Unless we're talking about the movie with the Chun-Li shower scene.
I gotta ask, is it the same actress?
I don't think it is. I think it's a
Nope.
completely different actress.
Did you ever watch Smallville?
Yes.
It's Lana Lang from Smallville.
All right, we'll be reviewing that movie.
So in the movie, Balrog, Chun-Li, and E Honda like all teamed up as a trio. So what happens next is Chun-Li ends up breaking into the Allied Nation embassy. And I gotta say, like, I loved her stealth scene because it felt like really realistic. It wasn't like your usual Mission Impossible stealth scenes where just everything goes out on without a hitch. Did you guys feel like it was like really tense, even though it was like really simple?
I felt tension.
Because what she does is she pulls herself out of the like news van, sneaks along the thing. There's like a soldier patrolling. She throws herself like over the stairs, and is just creeping around each edge. Like it just feels like really intense. But she quickly finds out like God. She goes to the morgue because she's following like a tracer device and finds out that Guile didn't die, but he's probably spent all night under the tarp.
He was waiting for that moment.
But she gets arrested, ends up escaping like right away, and we go like what I call the arms deal scene. So Sagat's a major like arms dealer. He's working out a deal with M. Bison to sell him a whole bunch of weapons. Chun-Li ends up figuring out Ken and Ryu are working with Guile. That's why he's still alive. And M. Bison ends up trying to pay Sagat with like all this funny money. And at least like a arms standoff because like, hey, like we need real cash. We don't need this stupid funny money with your face on it. But M. Bison's plan's actually pretty good if you think about it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna give you this money that's worth nothing right now, but if you side with me, it's gonna be worth a whole lot of money. And M. Bison's actually like a serious threat. This isn't like the sneaky guy behind the scenes.
Right? Didn't they state that he took over like 64? What was it? 64 nations or whatever in the beginning of the movie.
I think it
Like
was 65. It was really confusing.
Yeah, but they talk about his progress, and it's like it's pretty impressive for what he's doing.
Yeah, he's a major threat. Chun-Li and E Honda and Balrog end up taking the weapons and blowing them up. Ken and Ryu ends up getting the stand down to basically the showdown between them to just by pointing out Chun-Li was about to betray them, and they end up going back to M. Bison's base, and we get the torture scene. All right, Jeremy just disconnected, and we're back now, and I've been pulling up the shower scene while I've been waiting. It is actually from a animated Street Fighter 2 movie.
Oh, that's not Lana
Oh.
Lang from Smallville.
Sad day. Sad day.
But anyways, Jeremy, what'd you think about the torture scene?
The torture scene?
Yep.
I don't know. I guess I really didn't think too much about it. I just kind of went with it.
What about you, Ryan?
Hilarious.
Jeremy just ignored it, and I'm going to have to side with Ryan on this. So, E Honda, Balrog are sent to the torture chamber. Balrog's chained to the wall, and E Honda's thrown in like this metal stockade type thing. And the torture guy's he's grabbing like this switch and just beating him over the back of it. And then every time he like hits E Honda, it just goes to E Honda's face, and he looks really bored, or he's just paying attention to other stuff. Where and even the torturer's like figure out like, why won't he show any pain? And eventually just gives up and leaves. And then you see E Honda's back, and his back is just completely bleeding and cut. And then Balrog asks him like, "Hey, like, how'd you do that?" He's like, "Oh, I can make my spirit leave my body, or my mind leave my body, go to a better place." Like, okay. But they quickly break out. It's like two super strong guys just rip their chains off and just free each other and prepare for the torture to come back. But eventually, Ken and Ryu end up going in, trying to save them. And luckily, whenever they attack Ken and Ryu, they don't choke them out. They just let them. They eventually release them, and they all team up with each other. But during that's whenever we have the Allied nations tell Guile he needs to surrender, but he goes, gives a motivational speech to all of his men, and then they all decide to go attack with him. So they all head to M. Bison's base in a bunch of boats. Feels really D-Day-ish.
I was also motivated by his speech.
Yeah, his speech was like really good.
I was ready for battle myself. Like, come on, Bison, let's do it.
Basically, Guile, Cammy, and T-Hawk, they all jump into like a stealth boat and go towards M. Bison's base. You get a scene where this boat's stealthed and shooting up all of M. Bison's defenses. Meanwhile, back at M. Bison's base, he brings Chun-Li into his private quarters to do a marry and wine and dine type situation. And we finally get to see Chun-Li in her semi-iconic outfit. But she ends up attacking M. Bison and just starts kicking his ass. So everyone else comes in as soon as M. Bison goes into his lockdown room, and everyone gets knocked out and captured. But Guile goes in. They infiltrate the base. Something I didn't mention is blanka in this movie. So I wish they wouldn't even put blanka in the movie. Like, I know they wanted like all the characters in here, but the whole blanka special effects was awful.
Yeah, they could have left him out easily.
But
And like you could tell they really didn't want him on screen too much, because like when they were showing them, it was either cut shots or like it was really dark or smoky.
foggy.
Yeah, foggy or gassy.
Yeah, I noticed that because the makeup wasn't really good, and the idea is like some hulking beast with huge muscles, and it was just like a normal guy with the green paint on him. They really only wanted to be showing his face, and even then, I think even they knew that the costume, the whole face thing they did with him looked awful. But here's the interesting thing about that. So the character is Charlie Nash. I was looking up this on the Wikipedia, and apparently Charlie Nash is a completely different Street Fighter character.
So not even Blanka.
Yeah, not even Blanka. But they kind of bent the lore a little to fit him in the movie. But whenever Guile goes back into the base, he finds the laboratory with him and the stretchy-limbed Indian guy, who I didn't know who he was, but I did like the role he played. He was basically a scientist that had been captured by M. Bison, and he didn't like what he was doing, and eventually he kind of started betraying M. Bison. But anyways, Blanka gets out of his chamber, kills the guard that's fighting him, and then him and Guile hook back up. But Blanka's a monster now, so yep. Then we get to the final fights. You have Ken and Ryu versus Sagat and Vega. Now, we didn't talk too much about Vega, but I really liked what they did with him, because it felt like really realistic. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say so. Felt like a real character. I remember hating fighting him though in the game.
At least you don't have to fight him in the movie. But I love the whole set piece they had. They were all fighting in like a gym, and you had like the sumo bathhouse painting on the back of the wall that's in the video game. But Vega's like using his like Wolverine claws to fight, and you could tell like they're at least real in some of the shots, because they're piercing like this punching bag. And there's also the scene where Ken's fighting Sagat, and they've got like this like small punching bag, and Ken goes and just smacks it hard, and it bounces to hit Sagat's face, and then Sagat just punches it, and it explodes all over the place.
That was a really fun scene.
Was it Tairimo Boy certified fun though?
Absolutely. Stamped and approved.
Good guys always win, so Ken and Ryu win, and they go to the huge gunfight going on in the lobby. Now, like I said, there's a lot of gunfights in this movie, but these ones are like especially ridiculous because like all the Street Fighter characters were going just beating up like all these like armed henchmen without getting shot.
There's a lot of dodging bullets in this without having to dodge. A lot of plot armor here.
A lot of stormtrooper aim.
Yeah.
But it leads into Zangief fighting E Honda. They get knocked into the Godzilla city. They're being watched on a security camera. But that really doesn't go too far, because most of their fighting's off screen, and eventually Zangief E Honda's like, I gotta go. I'm not gonna die for this, and that's when the whole thing with DJ go. So DJ's like in the background. he'll say a few snide remarks every once in a while, but he really doesn't do much in the movie. Then we get to the real fight, the real bulk of it. Guile and M. Bison fighting.
Guile versus Darth Bison.
So it's really divided into two parts. You get a normal fight once where no one's using sonic booms or anything. And then at the end of that fight, Guile ends up knocking M. Bison into like a control panel and Bison gets electrocuted. Then while Guile's talking with Cammy on his like radio video phone, which I don't even know if those existed in 1994, but they certainly do in this movie. The computer's working on resurrecting M. Bison. Resurrects him as with like all this like electricity powers, I guess since he got electrocuted. And he's like flying around like I'm a god now, and quoting the Bible. And then he starts like Supermaning around the room, just like hitting Guile. But eventually he gets knocked into the panel and beaten. And the self-destruct sequence, which all these evil bases are equipped with, ends up going off and everyone escapes. Zangief avoids getting arrested for some strange reason because he's a Street Fighter character, I guess. But everyone escapes except for Vega. We never see him again after his fight. And everyone lives happily ever after except for DJ and Sagat, because while the base is blowing up, they go. So DJ goes, grabs like a whole treasure chest out of M. Bison's office. That's supposedly his severance pay. And Sagat jumps like, "Oh no, you're not gonna get out of it. You're gonna show me the way to escape, and you're sharing that thing." But at the end, they end up breaking open the chest. It's full of M. Bison's fucking funny money.
Loved it.
So it all comes full circle. But basins have been blowing up, and everyone lives happily ever after, and you get a group photo. Credits roll, and then Jeremy, who's not respectful to the hairdressers and set designers of this movie, doesn't watch the credits. So he doesn't get to see the scene at the end where the base is in ruins, and then M. Bison punches his way out of the monitors that collapsed on him. Setting up for a sequel that didn't happen.
I apologize to the staff and extras. Wasn't aware that after credit scenes were a thing back then.
Well, you have it here, folks. Jeremy's shitty apology.
You can tell I wasn't sincere.
Those hairdressers work hard, Jeremy. The people holding those cables as Bison Superman around worked hard.
You know what? You're right. They worked really hard on that set.
But, yep, that's the plot of Street Fighter. So, Jeremy, final thoughts.
So, again, I knew nothing of the lore. I only knew a few of the characters. As just watching this from a perspective, I couldn't even really tell it would have been a Street Fighter movie. I don't even know if they needed the IP, but as an over-the-top 90s, horny, Tairimo Boys certified fun movie, I really enjoyed this movie.
I think they kind of needed the IP with this, because I think it would have been a completely forgotten movie if it wasn't using the iconic characters. Because early in the movie, I was thinking, like, did they really even need the characters for this? And then later, as the movie progressed, like, yeah, they needed the characters for this.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a shame this isn't considered a cult classic movie. That's the real shame.
I know. It got a really low score on IMDb.
Yeah, it's got like a 4.
Which surprised me because, again, I really enjoyed this movie.
What about you, Ryan?
You know, I just want to say this to the filmmakers. The day I said that this wasn't the greatest movie in the world was the most important day of your life, but to me, it was Tuesday.
There it goes, quoting the movie again.
But not really Tuesday, because it's a Saturday. But close enough.
So the context to what Jeremy's saying, Chun-Li wants M. Bison's head because when she was younger, Bison ended up going into her village and her dad was killed fighting M. Bison. And whatever she's telling M. Bison the story, he's just completely blowing it off, like ignoring it. It's like, I don't remember this whole thing. Like, for you, it was the most important day of your life. For me, it was just a Tuesday.
That was a great ad, Ryan. That was a great ad.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, this movie has just so many great quotable things. It mostly comes from Guile and M. Bison, though.
It really was. Cody, your final thoughts?
Well, as Zangief said in Wreck-It Ralph, even though you're a bad guy, you're not a bad guy.
Was Wreck-It Ralph in this movie?
No, but Zangief and Bison were. But actual final thoughts, like I mentioned, this is a criminally underrated movie. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but if I had to choose between watching the original Mortal Kombat movie or this movie, I'd probably watch this movie if I wanted some. Let me fix that. If I wasn't wanting a nostalgia hit, because nostalgia is a hell of a drug, I'd probably watch this movie because it's got more of a plot to it. Now, if I was wanting nostalgia, definitely watch the Mortal Kombat movie. But yeah, you should go and definitely see this if you haven't yet. It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, go see this in a theater.
Grab your time machines and make sure it does well in the past.
Because it deserves it.
So you guys are familiar with the scale. Jeremy, on the scale of the Super Mario Brothers movie to Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where would you rank this?
Mario Brothers movie.
Really?
Yep. I hate Annihilation.
What about you, Ryan?
Let's see. What's a fun movie that's not a masterpiece that's based off a video game?
The pickings are pretty slim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say slightly better than Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. Is that the name of that sequel? Or did I just make that up?
Yeah, it's The Legend of Chun-Li.
Okay. I know there's not a shower scene in that movie anymore.
Yep, that's the animated Street Fighter 2 movie. As for me, I usually don't scale it, but I'm gonna scale it. I'm gonna put it up probably just a single notch above the original Mortal Kombat movie. So maybe about around 75%. Because the pickings are pretty slim, and I think the only thing above that's probably the Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
Good point. Good point.
So, thank you for listening to another episode of Tairimo Boys podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us how much you love playing Street Fighter 2. If you like playing the other Street Fighter games, then go ahead and leave that. But we're more focused on 2. And don't forget to ring that motherfucking bell. Stay tuned for more episodes.